I started martial arts pretty young. Like most kids, you do a little bit of boxing, a little bit of wrestling. A lot of the time when I was young, your family, they used to roll about on the floor and wrestle with you. That was how they give you emotion. You didn't really get cuddles and kisses. It wasn't the done thing. So affection was being punched and have your arm tied up your back. And that leads into that you may go to a club and do wrestling. And about the age of 12, I started karate. And I went with a guy called Charles Mack, who was a very prominent karate guy. I didn't realise how good he was and who he was. And I was with him for a little while. And then friends that I knew was telling me about this art called Eskrima. And I was young and I knew nothing about it. And because I was doing karate, I just thought he was saying because I was doing this, he had something better. But I went and had a look and they were doing unarmed and it was free sparring. And I was only young and I did, wrestling and a bit of judo and a bit of boxing and a lot of karate at that time. And I thought to myself, well, I'm all right. And I was the worst in the room. I got completely battered, everybody, and I mean by everybody. And I went away and sulked a little bit and got myself together and I went back and forward a couple of times. I only saw the unarmed, but this is a way that Brian Jones used to teach. He would do unarmed and he had vast experience on many arts. And it was his way of teaching, and then the weapons would come out. And around that time, his students was also teaching. And one of them was called Bill Newman, and he was part of another way of thinking, and he was extremely good at Eskrima and the unarmed. Brian, I didn't see so much of, but I liked his attitude, and his attitude went into his students, and it was train anything, learn everything, and just train whatever it was. From there, I saw the weapons, and I realised that the people that use weapons, their unarmed was better, they were sharper, they was faster, their positioning was better, they had more energy. And that's when I started taking a weapon serious. And in between that time, I would train with a guy called Danny Abbott and a guy called Scully, that we would train in gardens and each other's houses and little gyms. And we would test it. We would really go for each other and get a lot of advice, and we didn't always agree with what we was taught. And at the time, we were having a lot of fights in the area, and we was also tested it then. And we found out what didn't work as much as we did what did work. From there, Brian eventually went to Peterborough. Bill opened up a club in a famous judo hall, and we used to train with Bill there. And once I understood the weapons, I got interested in all weapons, and I spent maybe 10 years travelling the world and up and down the country, learning about swords and axes and all different weapons, because I was interested in Western arts, not just Eastern arts. And so from that developed what we've come to now. I was lucky because the nature of the work I did also kept me fit. I was a professional fireman in London. I was a firefighter, running up and down ladders, carrying things. And one of the things that I noticed is when you're going into a burning building, you have a sense of balance, a sense of awareness, because it's dangerous. You have to move quick, but not move stupidly. So even that was beneficial to the training. To be able to move when you can't see, and to test that the floor's there and the roof's not going to give way. These are all relying on yourself, with your sixth senses. You learn about yourself. So we used to have 4 days on, 4 days off, and because I had a young family, I also did some door work, mainly at friends' clubs, and helped them out in pubs and things. And that's when you really find out what people are like and how nasty it can be very quickly. And from there, you start learning how to control and how to behave and how to make other people behave. For me, my Eskrima was about me. I did Eskrima martial arts and learned about lots of weapons, and I travelled the country because I wanted to be as good as I could be at different things. I never intended to run a club. I never intended to have an organisation. I had no interest in teaching. It was purely for selfish reasons. But as I travelled for knowledge, people would say to me, "What are you doing? Show me what you're doing." And I started teaching. I also broke my back and had to learn to walk again and do things. and had to rethink. And that was the first time that I started really thinking about how the body works. Up until then, I relied on youth and speed and power, a young man's fight. But I had to think like an old man when I was a young man. And I started then realising that you have to also teach with people with their bodies, not yours. So I think my teaching skills started after my injury. And what I did is to improve my body posture and my injury, my spinal problems, is I went to a special needs gym where they looked after people with special needs and cerebral palsy, and the coach there showed me a lot of things about the body and how to strengthen it and how to improvise. And that helped again in my teaching. Over the years, because of all the different weapons I did, what I learned about weapons was it teaches you what you must do, not what you want to do. Whereas people who are unarmed, they can make mistakes. It's not so forgiving. But we don't walk down the road in our country with great big knives and sticks. People do, but they're the wrong people. So we have to have an unarmed understanding and an awareness. Now, I attracted lots of doormen and policemen and people that actually use it every day. But it had to be adapted for everybody, not just for an elite few. It had to be worked, how could it be taught? And that was the biggest problem. I worked for a European organisation that had 60,000 members in all countries all around the world. I've actually taught and trained and done demos from China to South America to America. Most of Europe, most cities in Europe I've taught and trained in. But what would happen there is one would have a very basic syllabus and someone else would just be teaching conceptual ideas, and people would come to me to make sense of it. How does it work together? And that forced me to start thinking how to explain it and write it down. After a while, I wasn't happy where I was. I didn't think it was value for money. I felt restricted. So about 10 years ago, I went independent and I formed a Scream of Concepts. Now, the word concepts, it fools a lot of people because they say, well, a concept is an idea, it's not is. So I say, well, look, a man's walking, he sees a horse, he decides he wants to ride it. That's a concept. Once he's rode it, it's normal. But he's on the horse and he goes, oh, I could put some armour on. So another concept comes from something that is. Someone else says, I want to train an aeroplane. But the constant theme there, the thing that remains the same is you walk to the horse, you walk to the train. So you can still say you have your tradition and your basics, but we don't know where it's going. So concept is abstract, but fighting is abstract. We don't know the skill of the person. We don't know his pain threshold, what he's willing to do, what he's not willing to do. We have to learn that about ourselves too. So a lot of things are conceptual because there is unknown factors in there. So what we're saying, the reason why we're saying we're conceptual is because what we teach is, but where we're developing comes from conceptual ideas, and that comes that as the students get better, you see more to do. But you didn't see that when you first started. So it's in constant change. And that's what conceptuals are. Concepts change and bring things about, and then new things come. So for them that say conceptual doesn't exist, it takes an idea to become something. It might no longer be a concept, but it's continuously striving to do more things with it. We want to be future-proof. We don't want to have a sell-by date and sit on our laurels. We want to work with the times. As an instructor, what's my role? My role is simple. I have one job, and that's to make you better. It's not how good I am. It's not how good I was. It's not about memory lane that when I was young I did this and I could do that. My purpose now is an educator. But I'm an educator in a reality system. It's a no-nonsense, no flashy, no flowery movement. We do some exercises that prepare you for combat, just to remove some stress and get you ready. But everything we do is combat related. Otherwise, we don't do it. If we have a sword, it's not on a wall, we learn to use it. We don't have wall hangers. If we can't use it, we don't want it. We don't want to waste our time.